kind of engine is so massive it makes a semi-truck look like a toy? Meet the Caterpillar 3612. An industrial diesel engine so overbuilt, it skipped right past the world of road transport and decided to power ships, power plants, and oil rigs instead. If most engines are house cats, the 3612 is a lion. Loud, heavy, and not remotely interested in your commute. But why build something this colossal in the first place? What kind of power are we even dealing with? And if it's really that good, why isn't it everywhere? As we dig into this industrial mammoth, we'll follow the trail of questions most engines don't even invite. Where does a machine like this actually work? What makes it so good at doing what it does? And maybe most importantly, is it all just brute force or refined engineering wearing a hard hat? By the end, we'll uncover the legacy this monster leaves behind, and find out if, in today's world of downsizing and efficiency, there's still room for raw, unapologetic diesel power. You definitely don't want to miss any of the action. If you're into monster machines, diesel brutes, and the stories behind the power, don't just bounce. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We've got plenty more mechanical madness coming your way. Now let's get right to business. The 3612 is part of Caterpillar's 3600 series, a family of diesels that never bothered to apply for a CDL. Designed in the late 80s and refined through the 90s, the 3612 wasn't built for the road, it was built for endurance. Think continuous, punishing workloads that would make a truck engine crawl into a corner and weep. It features dual turbochargers, advanced fuel management for its time, and cooling systems that look more like something out of a nuclear sub than a diesel engine. The 3612 was the black sheep of the family, loud, proud, and impossible to ignore. Within the Caterpillar 3600 series, which includes the 3606, 3608, and 3616, it was like the middle child who hit the gym and never stopped flexing. Smaller siblings like the 3606 and 3608 were solid workhorses, reliable, efficient, and easier to slot into more conventional operations. The 3612? That one took things even further with more cylinders and a touch more power. Compared to those, the 3612 hit a kind of industrial sweet spot. With 12 cylinders and over 10,000 pound-feet of torque, depending on spec, it delivered monstrous output without fully tipping into good luck installing this territory like the 3616. And unlike the smaller models, the 3612 could comfortably run high-load operations on its own without needing backup. Now, put it up against international bruisers like the MAN 4860 or the Wärtsilä 32, and things get interesting. The MANs and Wärtsiläs are often seen as the kings of marine and industrial power, reliable, fuel-efficient, and surprisingly polite for engines the size of small houses. But while they dominate global shipping and stationary power markets, they tend to lean on modular setups. The 3612 brought that guerrilla energy. Caterpillar's offering wasn't always the most refined or the cleanest running, but it was often the quickest to deploy and the easiest to support in parts of the world where Caterpillar service trucks were more common than coffee shops. Where Wärtsilä might charm you with Finnish precision and MAN might hand you a leather-bound maintenance log, the 3612 would grunt, light up, and get the job done, especially in rugged, remote, or brutally hot environments. So, is it the most sophisticated diesel engine out there? Number. But if you needed raw, relentless power and didn't care about frills, the 3612 had your back. But once you've wrapped your head around the size, the real question kicks in. Why build something this massive in the first place? Did someone mistakenly build an engine that could double as a small house? Well, only if that small house needed to power a small city. Otherwise, it's right where it belongs. The Caterpillar 3612 isn't a misfit. It's a purpose-built monster, engineered from the ground up for tasks that make even the beefiest road haulers seem laughably underqualified. This isn't an engine you squeeze under a hood. It's one you install with cranes, weld into steel hulls, and run 24/7 to power things that don't stop, like cargo ships, offshore platforms, and city-scale power plants. It came out of a practical need for an engine that could keep running in places where things aren't allowed to stop. In the late 1980s, Caterpillar had a growing customer base in heavy-duty, round-the-clock industries, marine shipping, oil and gas, and large-scale power generation. These weren't casual applications. They were serious, high-load, high-stakes environments that chewed up lesser engines and didn't say sorry. The point wasn't mobility. It was relentless industrial stamina. When Caterpillar put this beast together, they weren't thinking about horsepower per pound. They were thinking about horsepower per continent. With 12 massive cylinders, a 48.4-liter displacement, and a frame the size of a studio apartment, the 3612 was born for bulk. Not speed, not drag racing, just raw, earth-moving power that you could count on in the middle of the ocean, or a blackout-stricken grid. The engine was introduced as part of Caterpillar's push into what's called the medium-speed engine space. Too big for trucks, too efficient to ignore. Its build was all about modularity and uptime. That meant long service intervals, easy access to parts, and remote monitoring before remote was even trendy. It wasn't glamorous, but it got the job done, and that's exactly what Caterpillar was aiming for. You see, some engines are built for versatility. The 3612, it's built for singular, unapologetic dominance. You can't just repurpose it. There's no street-legal retrofit waiting in the wings. It exists solely for extreme-duty environments where failure isn't an option. Offshore oil platforms? Perfect. A power plant in the middle of nowhere? Ideal. Your daily driver? Not unless you live in an open-pit mine. What makes this more fascinating is that it's part of the broader 3600 series, and even in that heavy-hitting family, the 3612 sits like a well-fed lion. Its smaller siblings, like the 3606 or 3608, were still massive, just not make the Earth spin faster massive. They powered ferries, industrial compressors, and backup systems. But the 3612 was always meant to be the muscle at the top of the chain. A brawler with a work ethic. So yes, it doesn't fit in a truck. That's kind of the point. It was built for an entirely different league, where payloads are measured in megatons and downtime costs millions. And in that arena, the 3612 wasn't just big, it was necessary. Of course, being necessary means nothing if it can't deliver. So how much power are we talking here? Let's just say if your average diesel truck engine is a pit bull, the Caterpillar 3612 is a grizzly bear that skipped breakfast. This thing doesn't dabble in power, it embodies it. At full tilt, it puts out around 4,500 horsepower, and does it with the calm, steady tone of an engine that's not even trying hard. All that comes in at a little under 1,000 RPM. That's not a roar, it's a low, ominous hum that means business. The specs read like an overachiever's resume. V-Dvanacht layout, 48.4 liters of displacement. Twin turbochargers bolted on like an afterthought, because one just wouldn't be enough. And torque? It's not even funny. You're looking at a wall of rotational force designed to move thousands of tons without flinching. This engine wasn't made for speed. It was built to push mass. Mountains, factories, ships. The kinds of things that don't care about acceleration but absolutely require reliability. What's wild is how unbothered the 3612 seems while doing all this. It's not revving up to some thrilling redline, it's loafing. Barely crossing 1,000 RPM while generating power numbers most engines would scream to reach. It's a slow-turning, long-lasting workhorse, and that's exactly the point. This is endurance-grade engineering, not something you bolt into your lifted pickup so you can rev it at stoplights. That twin-turbo setup isn't about flair either. It keeps the power delivery smooth and dependable no matter the load. Whether it's powering a cruise ship or driving a massive oil platform, the 3612 just keeps going. It was designed to operate for weeks or even months at a time, non-stop. That's not horsepower for fun, that's horsepower for function. And remember, this isn't new tech either. The 3612 has been doing this for decades. Its design philosophy was simple. Build it huge, keep it slow, and make it last. And somehow, it still out-muscles plenty of newer engines that try to win through clever electronics and fancy tuning. So, if you were expecting revs and race stats, you're in the wrong conversation. The 3612 isn't about noise. It's about quiet domination. The kind of power that doesn't need to shout to be heard. It just runs relentlessly. As expected, no one's bolting a Caterpillar 3612 into their weekend project car or daily driver. This isn't something you show off at a truck meet. This engine doesn't commute, it works. But you might still not know the ideal places for a beast like this, so let's talk about it. Starting with marine vessels, those massive ships that glide through the ocean like floating cities. The 3612 is right at home in tugboats, ferries, and even small-scale cargo ships. Why? Because marine engines need to be unbothered by long hauls and brutal loads, and the 3612 is basically built to live in that kind of misery forever. It doesn't care about miles, it cares about months of non-stop movement. Then there are oil rigs, remote, demanding, unforgiving. You don't just need power out there, you need unwavering, always-on power. The kind that doesn't flinch in salt, heat, cold, or chaos. That's where the 3612 thrives, buried in the bowels of some offshore platform, chugging along like a diesel metronome while the world around it does its worst. And if the ocean isn't your thing, the 3612 also moonlights in power plants, especially remote ones that have no grid to lean on. It'll sit there in a concrete bunker, quietly producing megawatts, the way most people might quietly sip coffee. This isn't backup power, this is main event power. Serious energy for serious infrastructure. There's a reason it doesn't fit in a truck, because trucks don't face this kind of scale. You don't throw a skyscraper engine into a pickup. You put it in a floating factory or a facility that powers an entire island. That's where the 3612 belongs. Not under a hood, but behind the scenes of major industry, quietly keeping the lights on and the propellers turning. So, if you were wondering who actually needs an engine this huge, now you know. It's not people, it's operations. The kind that can't afford to stop. The Caterpillar 3612 doesn't run errands. It runs empires. On the other hand, one could just stack a few smaller engines together and achieve the same result, or at least hope for the best. So what really makes the 3612 the ideal choice? Of course, it is really good at what it does, because that's why we are talking about it. But what does that even mean? Let's be honest. When an engine is too big for a truck and gets assigned to power plants and offshore rigs, it better bring more to the table than just bulk. And the Caterpillar 3612 does. This isn't just a big engine, it's a smart brood. The kind of machine that doesn't just survive heavy-duty tasks, it thrives on them. Start with its build. The 3612 is made to be unkillable. Its components are comically over-engineered. Think thick cylinder liners, forged steel guts, and an overall design that basically says, go ahead, try and wear me out. It's got a rated service life that would make most diesel engines weep with envy. This thing doesn't blink at 50,000 hours of runtime. Then there's its ability to churn out full power all day without throwing a mechanical tantrum. Thanks to its efficient combustion design and dual turbo system, the 3612 delivers high power at relatively low RPMs, meaning it's not just loud and proud, it's controlled and consistent. That balance between power and poise makes it ideal for applications that require non-stop output. Then there's its fuel efficiency under load, which is where it really starts to shine. Sure, it drinks diesel, but it sips compared to what you'd expect from something this massive. It's tuned to deliver consistent power at lower RPMs, meaning it doesn't need to rev to the moon just to get work done. That translates to fewer fuel stops, which, if you're floating in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, is a really big deal. For cooling, it's got that covered. With massive coolant flow rates and a design that manages thermal loads like a pro, the 3612 keeps its cool even when the job's boiling hot. Whether it's churning at full tilt in a power plant or pushing through saltwater environments, this engine's thermal management system is what makes sure everything stays calm and collected inside. And let's talk service intervals, because downtime is money. The 3612 is built with accessibility in mind. You can inspect, service, and replace components without dismantling half the planet. And thanks to predictive maintenance tech, operators can catch problems before they become disasters. It's the kind of reliability that feels boring until you realize boring is exactly what you want when powering a billion-dollar facility. So, what makes the 3612 so good at its job? Simple. It's a workhorse built with the mindset of an over-prepared, diesel-drinking doomsday prepper, ready for anything, afraid of nothing. With all of these jaw-dropping stats and performance, you would expect that the 3616 would be the king of every engine room? Right? Wrong. The reason for that is less about power and more about practicality. And that's where this giant shows its quirks. First, let's talk size. This engine is a literal heavyweight champion. Imagine trying to squeeze something that can weigh upwards of 14,000 pounds into a truck designed for a fraction of that. Spoiler alert, it doesn't fit. It's the kind of engine that demands space like a celebrity demands a dressing room, so it's not exactly a casual swap under your pickup's hood. Weight isn't just a number here, it's a challenge. The 3612's heft means it needs custom mounts and reinforced frames just to sit still without causing a structural meltdown. You wouldn't just toss this beast into a rig without rethinking the whole vehicle architecture. Too much drama for everyday trucking. Then there's the price tag. This powerhouse isn't an impulse buy. The cost of manufacturing, installation, and maintenance can make you rethink your life choices. It's built for industries that demand endurance and reliability, not for your average freight run. Installation and upkeep? Not your typical garage job. Specialized technicians with a PhD in heavy machinery, okay, maybe not literally, are needed to keep this monster purring. The engine's complexity and size mean it thrives in controlled environments. Think marine vessels, power plants, and offshore rigs. Places where downtime is not an option. Last but not least, emissions regulations have been tightening their grip worldwide. Even with Caterpillar's best clean tech efforts, the 3612's appetite for fuel and exhaust output makes it a tough sell in places demanding greener solutions. So, while the 3612 is a titan of torque and durability, it's also a reminder that raw power isn't always the whole story. It's a specialist, built for the heavy hitters of industry, where space, weight, cost, and emissions align with the need for relentless, colossal power. In the everyday world, it's a bit like bringing a battleship to a kayak race. Finally, the million-dollar question. Is this engine just overkill, or is it precision built for giants? It's easy to assume that the Caterpillar 3612 is simply a brute, throwing parts at problems until they break. After all, when you look at a 48.4-liter, 12-cylinder powerhouse that produces roughly 4,500 horsepower at just 1,000 RPM, the first thought is, that's insane. But there's more method here than meets the eye. The 3612 isn't just raw muscle, it's engineered muscle, carefully sculpted to perform specific heavy-duty jobs. First, let's talk displacement. Nearly 50 liters of combustion chamber means this engine ingests an astonishing volume of air and fuel every cycle. Why so big? Because it needs to generate immense torque, often upwards of 20,000 pound-feet, to drive generators, marine propellers, or drilling equipment without strain. But rather than revving to match modern sports car-like diesels, the 3612 stays under 1,000 RPM. Lower revs translate to reduced wear, longer service intervals, and consistent power delivery. In other words, it's not about screaming fast. It's about steady, enduring force. Next, consider the twin turbocharging and cooling systems. Two turbos aren't just for bragging rights, they're calibrated to provide boost across a wide operating range. This avoids turbo lag at low loads and excessive heat at high loads. Speaking of heat, the 3612's cooling architecture is no afterthought. Massive coolant passages, high-flow water pumps, and heat exchangers ensure operating temperature remains stable even under punishing tropical sun or sub-freezing conditions offshore. That's precision, not excess. We also see a modular design approach. Cylinder liners, heads, and pistons are interchangeable among the 3600 series variants. This design choice isn't about convenience for parts counters, it's about reducing downtime. If a head gasket fails in the field or on a platform at sea, you swap it out quickly rather than shipping the entire engine back to the factory. Again, that's refined thinking for industrial giants. Finally, fuel management. The 3612's electronic control module precisely meters injection timing and quantity. That means cleaner combustion, lower specific fuel consumption, and better load responses. It's a far cry from a simple mechanical injector pump. The result? A balance between brute force and efficiency, critical when fuel deliveries may be days away. So is the 3612 just overkill? Not really. It's massive for a reason. Engineered displacement and robust support systems to meet exacting industrial demands. Its sheer scale is paired with carefully tuned subsystems, turbocharging, cooling, modular components, and electronics, all designed for environments where reliability and longevity trump speed. In short, it's a precision-built behemoth, tailor-made for giants who need colossal power without compromise. The Caterpillar 3612 might not be the kind of engine you'll ever see under the hood of a pickup or roaring down a highway, but its impact in the industrial world is undeniable, and honestly, pretty unforgettable. This is one of those rare powerhouses built not for fame or flashy specs, but for pure relentless duty where failure simply isn't an option. Think about it. It powers massive marine vessels that haul freight across oceans, generators that keep entire offshore oil rigs running, and industrial plants humming 24/7. Its reputation is that of a workhorse's workhorse, an engine that doesn't seek the spotlight but quietly gets the job done, day in and day out for decades on end. It's not just about size or horsepower, it's about reliability, endurance, and adaptability in the harshest conditions imaginable. Moreover, the 3612 influenced how manufacturers approach industrial engine design. Its modular components and electronic fuel management were ahead of their time for such large displacement engines, setting a blueprint for combining power with serviceability and efficiency. This legacy trickled down to smaller engines in Caterpillar's lineup, and even inspired competitors to rethink how to build for both brute strength and precision. Sure, the 3612 isn't common outside of specialized sectors, and its sheer size makes it impractical for everyday applications. But in its niche, it's legendary. It represents a pinnacle of diesel engineering where complexity meets dependability and overkill turns into necessity. When you think about industrial engines that have truly stood the test of time, the Caterpillar 3612 is right there, quietly giant-sized and quietly unforgettable. You may not know it, but the Caterpillar 3612 engine is still in active use today. Despite its massive size and power, it continues to serve in various industrial applications where such capabilities are essential. Caterpillar continues to offer the 3612 engine for sale, particularly targeting markets in non-regulated areas where emission standards are less stringent. Its robust design and proven reliability make it a preferred choice for applications requiring continuous and dependable power. In summary, the Caterpillar 3612 remains a vital component in sectors that demand substantial and reliable power output, maintaining its relevance in today's industrial landscape. These days, everything's going smaller, lighter, smarter, phones, laptops, even diesel engines. But then you've got the Caterpillar 3612, which walks in like it missed the memo entirely. While the industry's been trimming the fat and chasing hybrid dreams, this engine stayed unapologetically massive, like it knew there'd always be work too big for delicate machinery. The 3612 isn't here to win over the EV crowd. It's not interested in shaving grams or squeezing into a compact frame. What it does instead is provide up to 10,000 horsepower, nearly 200 liters of displacement, and enough torque to spin a cruise ship. Literally. It runs on diesel, breathes through twin turbos, and doesn't care what the emissions chart thinks of it. And sure, you're not going to find it in a pickup or a city bus. But in power plants, marine vessels, and oil rigs, compact and efficient just won't cut it. These are places where uptime matters more than miles per gallon, and the 3612 delivers. It's not about being trendy. It's about doing one job and doing it better than anything smaller could. In those worlds, modern downsized engines might try to keep up, but they'll burn out long before the 3612 even needs its first major service. So, does it prove there's still room for old-school power? Depends on who's asking. For a long-haul trucker, probably not. But for anyone trying to push electricity across a grid or move 100,000 tons of steel through the ocean, absolutely. This engine isn't stuck in the past, and it just wasn't built for the future most people are talking about. It was built for a different kind of future, one where size, strength, and stamina still matter. And in that space, the Caterpillar 3612 doesn't feel like a relic. It feels like the right tool for a job most engines were never meant to do. So there you have it. The Caterpillar 3612, too big for trucks, too powerful to ignore, and too committed to chilling in the industrial heavyweight division. It's not trying to fit into your pickup. It's too busy keeping cargo ships alive and lights on in places you can't pronounce. But now we're curious. If someone handed you this beast tomorrow, what would you actually do with it? Power your hometown? Build the world's loudest blender? Let us know in the comments. The crazier the idea, the better.